Welcome, everybody, to this month's edition of Leadership Rounds, conversations with leaders shaping healthcare and beyond. And we're fortunate today to have Shan Cooper as our guest, who is shaping both healthcare and beyond. Shan is the founder and chief executive officer of Journey Forward Strategies, a solutions-focused consulting firm that specializes in leadership development and organizational effectiveness. Previously, she served as the chief transformation officer of WestRock and the vice president and general manager of Lockheed Martin Aeronautics Company, which I just recently learned, Shan, that aerospace defense is Georgia's number one export.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
That is an impressive thing. So we'll come back to that. She also served as that company's first corporate vice president of diversity and equal opportunity. She managed operations across 3 states where they designed and produced numerous military aircraft, and I just have to say them because they're cool. The C-130J Super Hercules, F-22 Raptor, P-3 Orion, C-5M Super Galaxy, and F-35 Lightning II. Just sounds cool. She's a stalwart public servant, having also served as the executive director of the Atlanta Committee for Progress, and is quoted as saying her work sits at the intersection of business and people strategies. And real quickly, I just want to run down a list of some of your accolades and either current or prior board work. So we don't have all afternoon because it could take that. But Georgia Trend's 2015 Most Respected Business Leader, 2015 Women of the Year by the American Association of University Women, Black Enterprise Magazine's Most Powerful Executives in Corporate America 2017. She received the Georgia Chamber Blanchard Service Leadership Award and was inducted in the Georgia Trend Most Influential Hall of Fame this year. And I was fortunate to be in attendance when you received both of those, and has served on the boards or is serving on the boards of Southern Company, Girl Scouts of Greater Atlanta, the Woodruff Arts Center, the Technical College System of Georgia. And her connection to healthcare is that she still serves with Emory University and Grady Health. So I'm so excited to have 12 different conversations with you over the next 15 minutes. So thank you for being with us. Okay, so I read your bio, all of the accolades, but can you tell us a little bit about the early days? You didn't wake up as the GM of Lockheed. Tell us about the come up. How'd you get there?
Well, I'd have to tell you, first of all, Caylee, thanks for having me here this afternoon. I've been so excited about this session. I knew it was going to be fun with you. So it was really, I have to admit, I spent the earlier part of my career not really planning it out, right? The opportunity would make itself available, I'd show up. People would stop me and say, hey, I've got this opportunity, I'd show up. So I've done a lot in my career. I've been a bank teller. That was my first job out of college. I have been a consultant. I've been an entrepreneur early on in my career. I worked for Lucent Technology, so I was in technical sales, if you can believe that. But I landed at Lockheed Martin. I actually spent a lot of my career there in the human resources function. And so you talk about making the transition over to the operations side, leading a global multi-billion-dollar manufacturing, multi-state site, location facility. If you had said that to me, that Shan, this is going to be your primary career track, I would have said, no way, that's never going to happen. But again, I think it was just, being open and willing to try different things. But when I landed at Lockheed Martin, I really found my passion in the work there. I loved the work in terms of the mission of the organization. And the people were just fantastic. I mean, I'd walk into work and really work with rocket scientists. And so I felt really smart instantly. And so, but the journey was not really planned early on. But once I landed in Lockheed Martin, it's just a wonderful opportunity for me to have a place for me to have a great career.
It's funny that you say that. I tell that to people all the time. Just say yes. Just say yes. Just say yes. Take the leap. Take the jump. Take the leap. You have obviously led really complex organizations and had to, manage teams, build teams, identify talents and leaders across these very highly regulated, not, that dissimilar from healthcare. What do you look for in leaders that you hire, and how do you make a good team? How did you build leadership teams?
Yeah. So I look for 3 things primarily. First, ethics and integrity, right? And you have to come with that, Caylee, because I can't send you to a class to get that, right? And so I really, really start to ask questions and test for that. The second thing I look for is good judgment. If you can imagine running, a multi-billion-dollar operation, 3 manufacturing plants across 3 states, I can't be every place at the same time, but we all like to be, right? Reality is we can't. And so I want to have people that have good judgment. And I would tell people all the time, listen, here are our values. Here's how I expect us to make decisions and how we should operate as a team here at Lockheed Martin. But if it's not illegal, unethical, immoral, and nobody dies, we can always fix it. And I'm the accountable executive, right? But I got to know that how you get to making the decisions that you make. But I think if you give people good guardrails and they're good at what they do, you can just stand back and let them just go and do. So good judgment was always the second thing. And then I would look for people who have ambition. And that is, I want to find and work with people that wanted my job, right? And so I wanted them to have ambition, which means that they had to be lifelong learners, right? And they had to be willing, as we talked a few minutes ago, to take on the assignments that sometimes nobody else wanted to take on. But that's what I look for, those three things. And the fourth thing I would say is being a good team player. And so what does it take to be a good team? I think we have to start with a shared purpose, live value, so real clear about the guardrails around how we're going to behave. And then I think we have to start with this shared sense of this interdependency, right? So you win when I win, right? If I'm not winning, you're not winning. And a lot of times that gets driven through the performance management system. But I really want people just to come with that mindset. And so those are things that are really, really important to me. But that sense of purpose is absolutely, you got to have that.
I love that. And hopefully they all work together and have fun.
Right. They have fun, right?
And they do. And I heard, I can't remember where it was, but it was, and I may have said this on a previous version of this, from a military leader. If you want to solve a problem, put 5 friends in a room together. Like, put a team together that can appreciate one another and that trusts one another and will recognizes exactly what you just said, that all boats, tide raises all boats, that we're all going to win and let everything else fall the wayside, and they trust each other to solve the problem. So
absolutely. And sometimes as a leader, that it takes a lot of work. When I first took on the role here at Lockheed Martin, here I am coming in. Everybody in the company knows me as a human resource professional, right? That had been who I was. When I'm coming from human resources now to run this major operation, right? And so I really had to get the team aligned around my view of the world. And so you'll hear me talk a lot, probably let's talk today, about mission first, people always. And I needed the team to get that. But for them to get there, I first had to understand, why did they come to work every day? So I spent the first couple of months I was in the role just having small group sessions. I had about 8,000 employees just here in Georgia alone. But I sit down with those folks and say, okay, tell me, why do you come to work here every day? Because I wanted us to build our purpose together. And there were some folks, I said, just be honest with you. Some folks said, Shan, I only come here because I want the insurance. Lockheed Martin has great insurance. Okay, great, got that, right? But other folks really talked about why the mission was so important. So we developed our own purpose statement. I couldn't change the vision statement for Lockheed or the mission statement, but we could develop as a team our shared purpose. And our purpose was this, and I won't say this eloquently as it was written back then, but it was that for every warfighter that steps to our aircraft or our weapon system, that our purpose was to make sure that they came back home to their families, his or her family, safely every time. Wow, every time. Now think about that, the inspiration, and we all rallied around that. And so when people would come to me and say, oh, Shan, I need more resources for XYZ, my question would be, does that help or hinder our purpose? So it kept a lot of the team, kind of jockeying for funding and resources, what have you, because it was all about, okay, guys, we've agreed this is our purpose. Is that helping us get to why we come to work every day? And so it was a fun time for me. It gave me a chance to get to know the team, right, coming into that new role. But it can be fun. And we made it fun.
That's pretty powerful. That's a powerful mission or purpose that you all shared. When you made that transition from really focused in HR to, the executive of the organization, tell me about what you knew that your personal leadership strengths were, and maybe where, I know most leaders know what you had to hire or find on your team to balance you out.
Right. So let me tell you, my first day, I walk into my office and my executive assistant, Melanie, brings me the newspaper. It's the local newspaper where they've interviewed one of my employees who'd gone on to talk about how the plant is going to be shut down, how the company was social engineered. I was not qualified for the role, so on and so on and so forth. Parts of that was true, right? And I knew that, right? I had never built a military aircraft or a weapon system. Everybody in the free world knew that. But I was real clear about what I brought to the role, right? And so what did I bring? Financial acumen, strategy. More importantly, I brought a real clear understanding of what it takes to get the best out of people. And I think human resources is one of the most challenging jobs you can have in an organization. But when you can nail that and you've got that, that's transferable right across any job, right? And so I walked in, newspapers there. I know I've got some learning to do. I told my assistant, I said, I want you to set up an interview for me with that paper in about 6 months. Don't want to talk, so I've got some learning to go do. So I came in knowing my strengths, right? And I'm always clear about what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, right? And so I came in knowing that, but I knew I had to go learn the role. And so making that transition, again, human resources to an operations role, people really didn't, I guess they didn't understand. The folks who gave me the opportunity understood, but I always had good business acumen, right? And again, I always knew how to work with people to get the best out of them. I mean, none of us do these big jobs alone. And I was always real clear. I always surrounded myself with people who were smarter, right? But being that article was in the newspaper, I also knew I had to be very savvy about what I call, in every job, I will find what I call my trusted advisor. And that is the person I can ask the dumb questions of, right? And not have it show up in the newspaper, right? So David, who was my production manager, my production director, we spend Fridays running to the plant. I was in jeans, crawling through aircraft, understanding what we did and how we made things happen. So at the same time, I knew I was the face that would have to be in Washington. I knew I was the face that had to face corporate and just our customers, right? The other thing, Caylee, I recognized is that I was the first woman in that role. And a lot of my customers were from the Middle East, right? They're our allies. So I'm not selling any aircraft and weapons to people who aren't allies of the U.S. And I knew they'd come to our facility to get their aircraft. They wouldn't be expecting a woman, certainly not a woman of color, right? And so I hired a protocol officer. And Pauline's only job was to tell me what colors I could wear, could extend my hand. So I had to become culturally smart, right? When I could touch, our customers, our clients, what have you, all the protocols around respecting other people's culture. And that was her job for me. And so I was so grateful to her for that guidance that she provided. But again, surrounding yourself with the people that have the expertise that you don't, to help you really settle into a new role, to me, is really, really important. And I didn't get to pick all of my team members, but for the ones I could choose, I was real selective around the things I talked with you about earlier.
That's pretty awesome. And even talking about protocol and cultural sensitivity probably resonates with a lot of folks who have direct patient experience and client care here on our call. So let me switch gears to the healthcare world a little bit, and your kind of public service and boards. You currently serve on a couple of healthcare boards. I mentioned both Emory and Grady. Was that your first kind of real experience to see behind the curtains of healthcare? Like, how are those experiences been, and your observations thus far been around healthcare?
I'm going to be real candid with you, Caylee. Healthcare is hard. You know that already, though, right? We know. There is, in many ways, a measure of bureaucracy that makes me insane, right? Being a corporate leader. But most of it I understand and I get, right? And so being in this role, serving at Emory and serving at Grady, it has caused me to really appreciate the fact that good health is the foundation for a quality life. And it's caused me to recognize and understand really how blessed I am that I have access to that. Not many of our neighbors have access to that. But what I see in the people that work in these healthcare systems, they are mission-driven. They will run through the wall for their patients. I don't think it's something that I could do in all candor. I think nursing and healthcare and being in those roles, it's a calling, right? Kind of like teachers in essence, right? Sure. That you have to be called to these roles. I think, to endure all that, the healthcare that you all get a chance to see. And I really experienced that personally, probably more so at Grady, because I'm there more in that hospital. I enjoy going down, to the trauma center and seeing what we're doing. I enjoy going over to the EMT center to kind of root on our first responders, what have you. But it's a calling and it's hard. But you know what? It's not much different, though, from corporate America in many ways, in terms of the challenges that you face in terms of operating, cost, financial pressures, high demand, but I've learned a lot and I absolutely love it.
From your perspective, that board role, how do you feel like hospitals can really leverage their boards more meaningfully, or how can they seek even leverage your expertise and find more engagement with you and boards?
Right, exactly. As a board member, I want to be there to support the leadership team, right? But I don't want to get in the way. You still own it, you still lead it. I'm there to enable and support and sometimes just shine a light on the great work that's happening, right? As a board member, I clearly understand my role is fundraising. And I've got to help bring partners to those institutions. But I also want to be there to leverage it. If there's a business expertise that I have, I get to work, for example, on the strategic plans for Grady, right? Our 3-year plans, right? That's something I've done. That's something I feel comfortable doing, right? I'm not the healthcare expert, but I know how to ask questions, hopefully, right? That will cause us maybe to sometimes to think in a different way or kind of reinforce where the management team wants to go. But you have to be fully engaged as a board member. And so I don't miss meetings. I show up. Sometimes they're calls, sometimes they're live. But you have to be there and be present and be in the moment to be able to really add value to the conversation, to the work that's happening. And you have to know and get to learn how the institution works, right?
Yeah. And they're all different.
And they're all different. Yeah. Emory is nothing like Grady. Let me tell you, it's two very
That's right.
Institutions, right?
Having, sat in your seat and you've had the opportunity to see, healthcare leaders in different organizations, what would your advice be for folks kind of listening in or watching later on that are aspiring leaders in the healthcare world? How would you tell them to really pursue that, how to think about change, adversity, those types of things from your role as a board member? What are you really looking at and see in leaders?
Right. So I think in today's world, I think it's more challenging today to be a leader now more than ever, right? Because you're having to lead and make decisions when the world is uncertain and there's a lot of ambiguity, right? And so I encourage my leaders, my philosophy was always Colin Powell's philosophy. If I've got 70% of the data, I'm going to make the call. I'm going to make the decision, right? And so don't fear operating in this world of uncertainty. What you've got to just stay focused on the mission. And again, your purpose and why you're coming there every day. And in this case, it typically is the patient that we're trying to serve, right? Don't let the outside noise kind of get in the way. The other thing is that the world today that we live in, every day is about change, right? And so a lot of times I'm helping and coaching leaders to understand how do you navigate change and the perceived notion that people resist change. And I say perceived notion because oftentimes it's not that people resist change. It's just that I need you as the leader to know how to paint the vision for me, right? So I can look to the future and let go of the past. But if I don't know where we're going, I'm going to hang on to this because this is what I know, right? Until you can really point out for me, where we're going. And so leaders, as you are aspiring to lead these healthcare systems or going to your next role, a couple of things I would advise, right? And so a lot of times when people will come to me for coaching, I get called into businesses to help leaders to help actually assess if a leader is ready for the next role, right? For the next promotion up. And in that process, one of the things I try to test for is a couple of things. One, I call it know thyself, right? Do you know your strengths? Do you know your weaknesses, right? And I tell people always play to your strengths, right? The weaknesses you fill in with other people who can do that for you. Play to your strengths always, right? Mm-hmm. You know your value, right? What do you bring to the table? What are you going to bring to this role? that nobody else could bring to this role, right? So understanding your value. And then thirdly, I would say understanding your path, right? So why do you aspire to the role? Really understanding that. Because oftentimes when you get to the next level up, it's a different world. And usually when I'm testing for, and this is what I would do in HR, or we'd be promoting people. I've been testing to see, can the person make what I called the leadership turn? So what does that mean, right? Leaders fail, why? Because they can't execute. That's the number one reason why leaders fail. They can't execute. And why can't they execute? Because they can't make the turn. What that means is, I got, when I was here, I was rewarded. People recognized me. I was known as the expert, what have you. And I was doing the work. When I get here, they no longer want me doing the work, right? Now I'm coaching, I'm mentoring others to get the work done, right? But my comfort level is down here. So what will I often do as a leader? I'll come back and be involved here. And if someone's working here and you're in the way, you're not executing and perform at the level that the organization needs you to perform. And so I'm often questioning and share with people to make sure, look, are you really ready to make the turn? And so I'm going to test for your readiness. And so those are 3 areas that I try to help people work through. And in that is that whole notion too, Caylee, around self-care, right? You can't care for others, not care for yourself. So we get into a lot of that discussion, but that's what's really important as people are thinking about growing their careers, right? You've got to be a lifelong learner. You got to sometimes take on those assignments nobody else wants to do. But that's where you really learn, I think, right? And the hard stuff. And I just say you're going to fail, but fail fast.
That's right.
Fail fast, learn, and move on. And keep moving. Make sense?
Absolutely. I feel like we just got a masterclass. So free advice for everyone listening. Thank you. All right. There's a few questions I like to ask most of our guests, and I'm kind of logging some notes, and maybe I'll do something with them at the end of the year or something. If you could have a conversation with yourself 20 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
So I'd say this. So let me preface this by saying I'm a pastor's kid. So I tell myself this: hold on to your faith, girl, you're going to need it, right? Stay grounded in that. But I would also say, listen, your story is still being written, right? You're going to have some ups and downs, some highs, some lows, but stay the course, because the lessons that you learn will become tools where you can help other people to grow and develop, right? That's easier said when you're beyond that 20-year ago period. But you're going through things when you don't get the promotion that you think you deserve, when you don't get the opportunity or whatever, someone else takes credit for it, whatever it may be that you deal with in these organizations, right? Go through it, right? You may bend, but you won't break, right? Because you're strong and you know that, right? And a lot of it is a mindset. I'm amazed at, and I'm guilty of this too, that we allow these little voices in our head, right, to just tell us, oh, they're Shan, blah, blah, blah. And you get yourself so worked up, right? And then the reality is, it's not as bad as you think it is, right? And so I was very guilty of that at many points in my career. And so I just want to tell people, like, look, it's a mindset thing. And it's not that I'm being Pollyannish, right? That you don't have these struggles, right? But stay the course, right? Mm-hmm. Then you're right. You know what you know, right? You know what you can learn. You've demonstrated that you're a learner, right? And then go forth and just do what you do, right? But be in the process. So that's what I tell myself.
All right. Next question. Do you have what I call daily non-negotiables? You don't compromise. This is what Shan has got to do every day for Shan. Yeah. So I always begin my day with prayer, right? And in that, it's my prayer time, but it's also the time of the morning that I state my affirmations for the day. So this is going to be a great day. I'm going to help somebody today. I don't know what that means and how that's going to show up, right? But I just that's how I start, and that's non-negotiable, right? And I need that for me. I need that for me, Caylee.
And so that's non-negotiable. And I will tell people, too, I have, we all have wonderful family members and things we've experienced in our lives, right? And so my value system for me is clear, like I said, ethics and integrity, love of people. I don't care what you're shaped, how it's size, what color, whatever, love of people. Those are some things that just who I am is Shan. You're always going to see me with a smile, because what I recognize is that somebody may not get a smile that day, and I may be the one that's destined to give it, right? One of the things that when you're a pastor's kid, my dad would often teach me, and I would be complaining about my office, my job, and he'd be like, listen, this is not always about you. Sometimes you're in position to help somebody else, right? And so I tell people, I actually resigned from Lockheed Martin twice and didn't get out. But I recognized that I needed to be in position because I had to promote somebody forward, right? Or help somebody get through. Or I was dealing with this issue because I needed to learn something. I needed to become better at something, right? Or stronger at something. And so I'm grateful for those kinds of teaching. But value system, now I'm coachable and I will take feedback, but feedback is a gift. So your feedback has to align with my value system. Plus to give it back. So I love that. I love that.
Last question for me. What are you reading right now?
I am reading A CEO for All Seasons. It is a book published by McKinsey. And I usually read two books as well. I'll read a fun book and then I'll read something else. This book here is the first book that I've seen is really well done because it talks about the CEO at all stages. What if you are aspiring to be a CEO, what you should do? When you transition into the CEO role, what should you do? While you're in the role, what should you do? And when you're transitioning out of the role, what should you do? It's the first book I've seen written in that format. It's a quick and easy read, but I really like it because it has assessments as a part of the reading.
Oh,
and so I'm enjoying that one. Anyway, enjoying that one.
What's your fun book you're reading?
I am reading, the guy who does 60 Minutes, Scott, I don't remember his name, but he published a book last year, but he talks about all of his experiences. He's on 60 Minutes, and all of his experiences and his stories. So I just started reading that one. I don't remember the name of it now, but that's my fun book. I hope it's fun. I'm like, it's fun.
Shan, we are right at time. I feel like I've had a personal coaching session today. So thank you so much for imparting your wisdom. Any parting thoughts from you? Thank you for what you do, not just for Emory O'Grady, but for Greater Atlanta and the state of Georgia. We are forever better for your service. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah. But I want to thank the audience for all that you all do. You guys are great, and our communities rely on you all. You're such an integral part. You're a champion, right? For the community. So thanks for all that you do. And please just keep doing great things.
We appreciate you. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much, Shan.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.